Hello everybody. Today I am going to tell you about the sufficient condition for continuity. And before that, I have to prove the theorem, mean value theorem. And after that, I will go to the sufficient condition because this theorem, I will apply this theorem in that theorem. Clear? And it is a function of two variables. But let us see the mean value theorem for the function of one variable. See here, f of x is a function and it is defined on closed equal AB, and according to mean value theorem and more especially Lagrange mean value theorem, f of b minus f of a divided by b minus a is equal to f dash c. Here f of b minus f of a divided by b minus a is equal to f dash c, and what is c? C is less than b and greater than a. C lies between a and b. So I can write f of b minus f of a is equal to b minus a into f dash c. F of b minus f of a is equal to b minus a into f dash c. Okay. See here. If I take this one as 0, this one a and this one a plus h, then it will become f of a plus h and this is f of a. So this minus this is equal to divided by h. It will be f dash c. And what is c here? C lies between this and this. That means c is greater than a and less than a plus h. And my point is that, see here, this is a, this is a plus h. That means the difference is h. And c lies between this and this. See here, mindfully. What is this point? This total length is h. This point is, this length will be, if this is the midpoint, so this is 0.5 h. So this will become, if I start from 0, this will become 0.5 h, this will become 0.4 h, 0.3 h, 0.2 h, and this is 0.6 h, this is 0.7 h, and so on. All are multiple of h, but that multiple is point something, because this total length is h. So you are taking point something into h. That means if I write multiple of theta means theta into h, and what is theta? Theta is point something. Point something means it is greater than 0 and less than 1. I can write like this. Here. So here in place of c, I can write theta h, f dash theta h. Clear? Or a plus theta h, this it will start from a, so a plus theta h. Then what is theta? Theta lies between 0 and 1. See here, up to this one, if this point is 0, so up to this one it is a, then this point is a plus 0.2 h, this point is a plus 0.3 h, this is a plus 0.4 h, like this. So a plus theta h, what is theta? Theta is 0.1, 0.2, 0.33 something, 0.5234, then 0 point something. So that means theta h, what is theta? Theta lies between 0 and 1. Here. So remember this formula, and this formula I will apply in the proof of this theorem. Okay. So already I have told you the Lagrange mean value theorem for one variable. Now I am going to prove this theorem. See here. The left hand side is f of a plus h b plus k minus f of a b. F of a plus h b plus k minus f of a b. So this one I can write it as f of a plus h b plus k minus f of a b plus k, then plus f of a b plus k minus f of ab. I can write like this. I am subtracting this factor, this function, and adding this function. So this is equation 1 I am taking. So take this one as a single part and this part as another part. So here y remains constant, only the x varies. So apply Lagrange mean value theorem to this part. So by Lagrange's mean value theorem, f of a plus h d plus k minus f of a d plus k. Here the y coordinate remains same. That means there is no change in y. So from the left hand side to right hand side, keep y coordinate as b plus k. Only you have to apply the theorem to x coordinate. So it become this minus this, because b plus k minus 0 there is no change. Only there is a change in x coordinate. I have told you f of b minus f of a is equal to b minus a into f dash c. Clear? So this minus this, it will be h. So h into f dash, here the x coordinate varies. So fx I can write. Derivative a with respect to x. fx at a plus theta h and b plus k. I have told you why I am writing a plus theta h. What is theta? Theta is less than 1 and greater than 0. If the y coordinate from the left hand side to right hand side remains same, there is no change in y coordinate. So keep it as it is and only the x value. If that means if I omit this one, then we can say f of a plus h minus f of a is equal to h into f dash, that will derivative with respect to x of a plus theta h. Theta lies between 0 and 1. Okay, this part is over. See here, we have got this one. Only this part. And given fx exists throughout the neighborhood of a point AB and fy AB exists. Here the theorem is fx exists throughout the neighborhood of a point. Fx exists. Derivative of f with respect to x exists and derivative of fy f with respect to y also exists. Then you want to put this one. Now since if y exists at AB, it is given if y at AB exists here, or you may write directly if y AB exists. So what is the definition of y? Limit k tends to 0, f of a b plus k minus f of a b divided by k is equal to fy at a b. Clear? So very interesting thing I am going to tell you. If I omit the limit, that means if I write like this, f of a b plus k minus f of a b is equal to k into fy a b, then should we write anything over here or not? Yes, we have to write. See here, I am going to tell you derivative of x square plus 2 is 2x plus 0. Then derivative of x square minus 3, it is also 2x. Similar derivative of x square, it is also 2x. So if you will integrate 2x, then simply if you will integrate, you will get x square. So here the constant is 2, here the constant is minus 3, here the constant is 0. So that's why you are writing x square plus c. C may be 0, may be positive, may be negative, may be rational, may be irrational. Clear? So see here, similarly, you are omitting the limit. So when you take the limit, maybe this term vanishes. Maybe from the beginning, there may be 2 or 3 terms, and after taking the limit, those terms tends to 0. So that is why I am taking a function eta where eta is a function of k, because limit k tends to 0, function of k, and eta tends to 0 as k tends to 0. Clear? So that is why if you take limit on both the sides, take k to denominator, and after taking the limit, so this eta tends to 0. You will get fy at f. Clear? Then now see here. This is equation 2 and this is equation 3. So putting the value of 2 and 3 in equation 1 we get. Now putting the values from 2 and 3 we get f of a plus h b plus k minus f of a b is equal to this part, first part is equal to here. That means the value is h into fx a plus theta h comma b plus k, then plus the second part is 0. This one is the second part, so you can write directly fy k into fy at kb plus theta, and you should write where eta is a function of k and eta tends to 0 as k tends to 0. So this is the theorem. Clear? So simply remember this line, and you will apply this line in the conjugative theorems. Okay? See here. This is the sufficient condition of continuity. A sufficient condition that a function f of xy be continuous at ab is that one of the partial derivatives exists and is bounded. One of the partial derivative exists and is bounded, and the other one simply exists. That means if fx exists and it is bounded, fx exists and it is bounded, and fy only exists, then the function is said to be continuous. Again we can say if fx exists or fy and fx exists and fy, partial f with respect to y exists and is bounded, one of the function, both the functions should exist and one of them should be bounded, then the function f of xy will be continuous. Clear or not? Both the functions will continuous exist, fx fy will exist, and one of them must be bounded. Derivative f with respect to x, derivative f with respect to y, both will exist and one of them should be bounded. Then you can say the function f of xy is continuous. So how to do this one? By mean value theorem, we know f of a plus h b plus k minus f of, and for continuous we have to show, see here, f of a plus h b plus k minus f of a b mod should be less than epsilon. It will prove that this quantity, mod of this quantity is less than epsilon, then the function f of xy is said to be continuous. That means this quantity, mod of this quantity should be less than epsilon. And how many terms are there? Two terms are there. So if I prove that this quantity is less than epsilon by 2 and this quantity is less than epsilon by 2, then epsilon by 2 plus epsilon by 2 will be equal to epsilon. Then the function is said to be continuous. Clear? See here. The proof I am doing by mean value theorem. That theorem. We have f of a plus h comma b plus k minus f of a b is equal to h into fx at a plus theta h comma b plus k plus k into fy at ab plus theta. Clear? So this is equation 1. I am taking equation 1, and here 0 is less than theta is less than 1 and theta tends to 0 as k tends to 0. Now it is given that let fx exist and fx is bounded. It is given that one of the function should exist and is bounded. So I am taking fx exists and fx is bounded. Clear? So, and what is the condition for bounded function? If f is bounded, I am telling you, if f is bounded, then there exists m greater than 0 such that f mod is less equal to capital M. So this is the definition of bounded function. See here, fx exists and fx is bounded. Fx is bounded means there exists m greater than 0 such that fx mod is less equal to capital M. Clear? Therefore, this quantity h into fx a plus theta h or b plus k mod is less or equal to n into mod of h. You should take mod of h. Clear? N into mod of h. H into fx at a plus theta h comma b plus k whole mod I am taking. So this quantity is less equal to n and I am multiplying mod h to both the sides. So you will get n into mod h. Clear? Now, come to the second part. And for the second part, again given if y exists and as k tends to 0, theta tends to 0. So the second part tends to 0 as k tends to 0. Because as k tends to 0, this term becomes 0 and 0 into something. Because if y at a b exists, that means it is a finite quantity. So k into this one also becomes 0. So this total quantity tends to 0. Clear? So that is why now for given epsilon by 2 there exists delta greater than 0 depending upon epsilon we get k into fy ab plus eta mod is less than epsilon by 2. Clear? Under which condition this quantity is less than epsilon by 2? Where or if k mod is less than delta. And k mod is less than delta, I am taking. That means if k is less than delta, delta is very small positive number and k is less than delta. Or simply I can write, okay, you can write k mod. K mod is less than delta. That means if the value of k tends to 0, then this quantity will be less than epsilon by 2. Less than epsilon by 2 means if you take epsilon is very small number. So this quantity tends to 0. Delta is very small positive number. And epsilon, if I take delta is equal to epsilon, then this will be delta by 2. So if delta is very small, then delta by 2 is again very small. And if k is less than that quantity, that means if k tends to 0, so this total quantity tends to 0, which is the equal condition. Clear? So now, from equation 1, see here, take its mod f of a plus h comma b plus k minus f of ab whole mod, that means mod of this quantity h into fx a plus theta h comma b plus k plus k into fy ab plus eta whole mod. Now apply the triangle inequality. What is triangle inequality? A plus b mod is less equal to mod a plus mod b. Clear? So this is triangle inequality. So if we take the mod of this one means mod of this quantity. So this is A, this is B. So A plus B mod. So this quantity is lesser equal to mod of this one h into fx a plus theta h comma b plus k mod plus k into fy a plus ab fy ab plus theta mod of this one. Clear? So this quantity h into fx of this one is less equal to m into mod h, less equal to m into mod h plus this quantity and this mod h will be less than epsilon by 2 if mod h is less than epsilon by 2m, epsilon by twice of m. So this is the condition. That means I am writing directly. So this quantity is strictly less than epsilon by 2 plus here also I am taking epsilon by 2 which is equal to epsilon if the two conditions are h mod is less than epsilon by 2m and k mod is less than delta. So under these two conditions, the value of this one is less than epsilon, and hence f of xy is continuous. Similarly, you can take fx exists and fy exists unbounded. I have told you both the derivatives, partial derivative, first order partial derivative should exist and one of them should be bounded. Then the function f of x is said to be continuous. So this is the proof. And see here, in some of the universities, the proof they are going to face in the examinations. And it is of 6 mark question. For example, in Odisha, Ramadevi is going to set these questions, and the students are facing perhaps 8 mark questions. Clear? So, and in many other universities outside Odisha also, the universities are going and there's in the examination they set the theorems to prove. So you should know the proofs. Clear? Now this is see the corollary. A sufficient condition that a function to be continuous in a closed region is that both the partial derivatives exist and are bounded throughout the region. In the theorem I have told you, if both the partial derivatives exist and one of them is bounded, then the function is said to be continuous. Again here, both the partial derivatives exist and both are bounded. Then also the function is said to be continuous. Clear? And by mean value theorem we have now I have to prove, see here, I have to prove f of a plus h b plus k minus f of a b whole mod is lesser equal to, is less than epsilon, then the function is said to be continuous. See here, and this one I can write f of a plus h b plus k, very easy theorem, minus f of a b plus k plus f of a b plus k minus f of a b. Clear? Now, by Lagrange mean value theorem, this quantity will become how much? Here, y remains constant. So what is your formula? By Lagrange principal theorem for a single variable. This minus this. A plus h minus a is equal to h. And here the x varies, so I can write fx and a plus theta h. I have told you. And y value is b plus k. And what is theta? Theta lies between 0 and 1. Here. Now for the second part. Here the x quotient remains constant. Y varies. So this minus this. B plus k minus b. It will be equal to k. And here y varies. So fy, not fx. Here x varies. So I have written fx. Here y varies. So you should write fy. And the x quotient remains same. And y quotient b plus theta dash k. Same thing for this one. You are taking the difference h, a plus h, and any point in this interval is a plus theta h, where theta is. So multiple of h, where that multiple is point something. In this case also same thing. Here b plus k, and the difference is k. Here the difference is h. So this point is b plus theta dash k, and theta dash is point something, and its value is also lies between 0 and 1. Here, so see here theta and theta dash is less than 1 and greater than 0. Now, 6 fx and fy are bounded. There exists capital M greater than 0 such that fx mod is less equal to capital M and fy mod is less equal to capital M. That means fx is a function. Fx of something. Fx of anything. Alpha, beta, ab, anything. Its mod is less equal to m. Clear? Therefore, take the mod f of a plus h, b plus k minus f of ab. Its mod. That means mod of this one is equal to mod of this one. So is equal to mod of h into fx a plus theta h comma b plus k plus k into fy a b plus theta dash k mod. So a plus b mod is less equal to a mod plus b mod. So h into fx a plus theta h comma b plus k mod plus k into fy a b plus theta dash k mod. Here, and this quantity is equal to, actually it is equal to h mod into fx a plus theta h b plus k mod, because mod of ab equal to mod a into mod b. So h into this one mod means h mod into this one plus simply k mod into fy a b plus theta dash k mod. And fx is less equal to mod, mod of fx is less equal to m, mod of fy is less equal to m. So this quantity is less or equal to mod h into, and this quantity is less equal to m. So m into mod h plus this one. This quantity is less equal to m. So k multiplied. So m into mod q. And this is less than epsilon if take m common. So I can write h mod plus k mod is less than epsilon by m. If mod of h plus mod of k is less than epsilon by m, then this quantity is less than epsilon. So I have proved that f of a plus h b plus k minus f of a b mod is less than epsilon under this condition. Therefore, f of xy is continuous. Clear? So this is your theorem. Clear? See the second corollary. If fx and fy are continuous functions, I have told you, if a function is continuous, then it must be bounded. If a function is continuous, then it must be bounded. Already you have read in analysis, real analysis. So here, since fx and fy are continuous functions at xy, then both will be bounded. And if both the functions are bounded, then the function is said to be continuous. Already I have proven the first corollary. By real analysis, we know if a function is continuous, then it must be bounded. Here, see, so fx and fy are continuous, then it must be bounded. And if both are bounded, then the function is said to be continuous by corollary 1. Okay, so these are the theorems for sufficient condition of continuity. Okay, and from this it is clear that if a function is not continuous, then also it possesses partial derivatives. It does not mean that if a function is continuous, then fx and fy will exist. No, that is not true. If a function is not continuous, then fx and fy may exist. Clear? So, read the theorem clearly, and in the next class I will tell you theorems on differentiability. Okay, thank you.